there have been a bunch of reports linking the Toronto Raptors as a potential trade suitor to Kevin Durant over the past 24 hours. So I'm going to break down all of the latest news on that front, whether or not we can acquire him, the teams we're competing with, as well as the betting odds shooting up in terms of us making a potential trade with the Brooklyn Nets for their superstar. Additionally, there's an undervalued center out there on the free agent market that the Raptors have expressed interest in. I think could be a steal for this team if we end up getting him on a, one of our $3 to $5 million exceptions. So we'll see if that ends up going down. The Team Canada also had a massive W over the Dominican Republic, so got to show some love to Team Canada. We'll break down that game as well. And as is tradition with this time of year, Myles Turner rumors have picked back up, so we'll touch on those to end off this video. So without further ado, let's dive into all of this crazy news. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news, as always, right? And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I always forget to plug this at the beginning of videos, but we're covering this Kevin Durant, this Toronto Raptors free agency heavily in depth. So if you want the latest updates, subscribe to the channel. But as we're starting off with, as said in the intro, the Kevin Durant to the Raptors update, there's been a lot of reports come out over the last little while. Now, all of these reports are very supplemental to the nuclear bomb we got last night. I know some people said it's not a massive Woj bomb, more a Woj trickling or whatever, anything like that. But if Woj is out here linking the Toronto Raptors to a top 15 NBA player of all time, it's a nuclear bomb out here on this channel. So we're keeping it, we're staying with those titles. But all these reports are coming from lesser known, lesser insiders, people with less sources. But the fact that they're being supplemented, it's not just Woj talking out of nowhere, because Woj always gets roasted for his lack of insiders with the Toronto Raptors. It only makes it more and more valid and more potential that this deal actually goes down. So the first one we'll touch on, we'll just list them all out here in this video. It's coming from Brett Siegel, saying that the two teams I've heard the most in Kevin Durant trade talks are, one, the Phoenix Suns, obviously being Kevin Durant's preferred destination and a team with assets and a disgruntled star themselves, and secondly, the Toronto Raptors. So according to Brett Siegel, we're top two in the running. We're, in terms of making chatter, getting some chatter going with the Brooklyn Nets in terms of making a deal. So that's a pretty interesting development there. We have another report coming out from Adam Boré, I believe that's how you pronounce it, saying the Raptors are a sleeper team to watch and, quote, extremely interested in trading for Kevin Durant. So that's some pretty strong language there. Extremely interested, obviously a little bit stronger than what Woj was saying. It's a lurking possibility in terms of the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. So I think it makes sense that the Raptors would be extremely interested. Not guaranteed, not going to be throwing around assets left, right, and center. However, the interest is definitely going to be high when you have a player of this magnitude on a 4-year contract available via trade. So that's an interesting piece right there. And as followers of the channel know that have watched us for the last however long, right? Especially since the Kawhi Leonard deal, we used to ignore everything involving betting odds and betting favorites in terms of players, right? Vegas, they're just trying to make money off people. They're just trying to do the popular thing and whatnot. So we ignored that for the first, 3 years of this channel. And then we ignored it for the Kawhi Leonard for a week. We saw the reports. Riker and I didn't make a video on it. We were so naive to ignore the Vegas bookies. We said it was more likely to acquire LaMarcus Aldridge on that San Antonio Spurs team than Kawhi Leonard. And obviously we were wrong on that front. So since that point, we've put a lot of weight into the betting odds, the betting favor situations, and the Toronto Raptors odds to land Kevin Durant has jumped significantly higher. Vegas says, at least in terms of those bookies coming out. And according to this jump, we're at if Kevin Durant is traded right now, as the odds have jumped from plus 700 to plus 400. From my understanding, from what the article summarized, that means we have a 20% chance of landing Kevin Durant if one of those deals were to be made. So that's not nothing. That's a pretty significant jump in just one day following all of that news breaking down, with all those trade talks being talked about. And the two teams that are ahead of us in terms of the betting favorites, in terms of betting odds, are, one, the Phoenix Suns, which again, I still stand by are probably the favorites to land him, and should be, because there's preferred destination and they have a couple assets. But I will talk about our assets compared to the Phoenix Suns's, but they're the favorites for sure. The second in terms of betting favorites are the Miami Heat at this point, which again are one of Kevin Durant's preferred destinations. However, as currently constructed, the Brooklyn Nets cannot acquire a Bam Adebayo player in a return package for Kevin Durant because they have 2 guys on rookie extensions, which apparently is not allowed. I don't know if that's the specifics, but everything that's broken down saying that as long as Ben Simmons is on the Brooklyn Nets, the Miami Heat cannot send Bam Adebayo in a package back over to Brooklyn. So I think they're the only real asset that I think the Raptors would have to compete with. If I'm the Brooklyn Nets, I'd be much more interested in a Gary Trent Jr. or Fred VanVleet, an OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, obviously a Scotty Barnes, who I'm going to touch on in this video as well. Maybe Precious Achiuwa might be a push, but obviously I'm going to push the propaganda as long as I can. But I'd rather them than a Tyler Hero. And then players to send back to make the money work are Duncan Robinson, right? Kyle Lowry, who obviously is a Raptors growth, but struggled in this year's playoffs and is making a bag himself. We didn't like that contract that was given to him for the Miami Heat, and if we did, the Raptors would have kept him. So I don't think the Miami Heat are actually that great of suitors unless Pat Riley is willing to do some wild maneuvering in terms of trades. Maybe a 3-team deal, send him Bam one way, Donovan Mitchell one way, and I don't know, some weird stuff that's going to happen. I won't dive into that too much, but there's been a bunch of stuff. I sort of aggregated some big ones that came out over the past 24 hours there, but I wanted to give a little bit of a more coherent take on my thoughts on potentially trading for Kevin Durant, because last night I gave a rant, I gave a ramble as soon as it came out, as soon as I could make a video. I was supposed to go out to dinner. I was out on a hike, out on a swim. I said, I got to come home, make this video before I go out to dinner and get my thoughts out immediately. But I've let it marinate a little bit. I don't want to trade Scotty Barnes. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to give up Scotty Barnes in any Kevin Durant trade. Yes, is it likely Scotty Barnes will become a top 15 player of all time at the level, even the 34-year-old Kevin Durant that he is right now, right? Is it possible, or is it likely that he'll become that? Who knows? Who knows? That's tough to say. The homer in me thinks he could be top 1 of all time, but again, that's a tough standard to live up to, what Kevin Durant, the player, is right now for the Brooklyn Nets. However, he's super, super young. He has an energy. He has that sort of leadership ability to get guys going, to improve team morale, paired alongside those superstar attributes. He's a guy that's bought into the Toronto Raptors team. He's an immaculate defender. He facilitates. I love my star players being able to pass, being able to do things, and having that homegrown superstar locked in for a very long time, right? That's something that's very valuable. And I get where some people would say, you gotta make sacrifices in order to win championships. And if we just have to give up Scotty Barnes, that lineup of Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., Kevin Durant, OG Anunoby, Siakam with Precious, Boucher, Thad, Otto Porter coming off the bench, and maybe a Justin Champagnie, Malachi Flynn takes a step, Delano Banton, right? I personally have them as championship favorites over the next 3 seasons. Right, obviously NBA has shakeups going left, right, and center every year, but I'd throw that team as a championship favorite. But I don't know, man. My heart doesn't let me. I don't know if I'm delusional. I don't know if I'm crazy. I know if you look at NBA Twitter, they're saying that all Raptors fans saying they wouldn't trade Scotty Barnes in a Kevin Durant trade. They're delusional. Well, you know what? Let me be delusional. I don't want to trade Scotty Barnes in any package. If I had to see Scotty Barnes in a Brooklyn Nets jersey, I would be sick to my stomach. I'd be sick to my stomach. So that's my take on it there. But even with that being said, I think if we didn't, I'm leaving the Scotty Barnes talk out of it right now. My heart, I might be jaded. I don't know what. But leaving him aside, I still think the Raptors could make a compelling package to the Brooklyn Nets. They're saying they're looking for at least a couple. I've seen anything from 1 young all-star and 3 draft picks to 2 young all-stars and a myriad of draft picks. So there's a wide range on what's being reported in terms of the Brooklyn Nets asking price. With the Rudy Gobert trade that just went down, that asking price could be ridiculously high. I think that skewed the number of first-round picks that should be in a potential trade. But that's this whole other thing. I think we got to look at Rudy Gobert Timberwolves trade as the outlier rather than the actual value. I mean, James Harden only commanded what? He was a much better player than, at least at time of the trade, was a much better player than Rudy Gobert, right? Commanded a lot more money, but Rudy Gobert was locked in on a contract. it's a weird situation. It's a weird situation happening right now in terms of the value of these first round picks. But I think if the Raptors threw in a bunch of picks, added an OG Anunoby, who it would really hurt me to see in a Brooklyn Nets uniform, threw in a Fred VanVleet, I think we can get the deal done. And still, that makes us championship contenders. We keep our young rookie of the year, future superstar. We keep most of those core players around it. I think a deal could potentially be happening. Personally, again, your fans of their teams always value their own draft pick or their own players over other teams, but I'm like an OG Anunoby and a Fred VanVleet a lot more than a Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton. That's just me. I'm thinking Fred VanVleet was an all-star. OG Anunoby's a two-way wing that's on a better contract than Mikal Bridges, a better shooter in my opinion. Like I like OG over Mikal. I like Fred way more than a DeAndre Ayton. So especially DeAndre Ayton on one of those max contracts. I think we can outbid the Suns. I think we can send a better package without including a Scotty Barnes and hopefully without including a Pascal Siakam. So that's it's my take there. No I'll cut myself off from the Kevin Durant one. I'm 11 minutes into this. I should have just made this its own video and talked about the other news, but we're aggregating everything together. Put it all into one video. And the second topic we're talking about is the Raptors' interest in an athletic center. And this guy has been talked about among Raptors circles over the last little while, right? I've seen a lot of Raptors fans be interested in this guy over the past 2 seasons, but Thomas Bryant of the Washington Wizards, there's been potential. This is the report from Brad Turner saying the Lakers have strong interest in reuniting with free agent center Thomas Bryant, yada, yada, yada. But there's a veteran minimum and all that sort of stuff. But enough of the Lakers talk. Enough of that nonsense. No one cares about the Lakers. They're a poverty franchise right now. But the Toronto Raptors are also interested. So obviously that tweet gets you a little likes in the mainstream media with a bunch of Lakers talk, but touched on to the end is the Raptors are also interested in a Thomas Bryant. And when I dove into this a little bit, I said that's a pretty interesting player that the Toronto Raptors could go after. Because looking at his stats, right, he's dealt with some injuries. His most recent season is not very good. Played 27 games. He's dealt with injuries over the past 3 seasons. But you look at his last, 3 seasons before a significant injury last year. Averaged close to 14 points per game, 13 points per game, 7 rebounds. Shoots a pretty solid volume for one of those, for a big man in terms of 3-point shooting. Let's get those direct percentages up there. Right, for his career, is a 35% 3-point shooter. Shot 43% in 2020-2021, and shot 40% from the 3-point line the year prior. So we can get a big man. It's coming off of injury, so you can get him pretty cheap out there on the open market. They're talking about the Lakers signing him on a veterans minimum, right? That once averaged 14 points per game, bunch of rebounds, and shot 40% from the 3-point line. I think that's a risk the Raptors should take on a veterans minimum. I mean, we gave Svi Mykhailiuk's making that, right? We can take a flyer. We can take a risk. We have the big men if it doesn't happen. And if Koloko doesn't pan out right away in his rookie season, I think he's going to take, as I said in the draft video, a year or 2 to really come into full form. Be nice having Thomas Bryant around. So I think the Raptors should take a bite on this and take a swing and see if we can acquire him. But I'd say the Toronto Raptors are looking to probably maneuver some trade talks before any of that stuff happens. So that's interesting. Thomas Bryant. Team Canada also crushed the Dominican Republic in international competition, the FIBA qualifiers, and watching the first half of this game, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit nervous. Right, we don't have the whole contingent of Canadian players coming out on the front playing for representing the national team. However, we do have a couple stars out there carrying the way for the Team Canada in this competition. The guy that really killed it for us was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Put in 32 points in that game. Kelly Olynyk also had 28 in this one. Nickeil Alexander-Walker put in 18. Right, Dwight Powell had 12. So the NBA guys out here carrying the way for Team Canada. And the first half, it didn't look like Shai was going crazy was going to go nuclear. But the second half, we saw what the potential for Team Canada can do. Obviously, the Dominican Republic is not a powerhouse by any means in terms of international competition. But the Raptors have had a tendency to lose to these types of teams in these tournaments and these qualifier tournaments. So if we can just win, if we can just get in and then get our main guys, obviously Wiggins played last year and was a beast for us, right? We have Dort who was signing a free agent contract this year, so sketchy stuff. Same thing with Chris Boucher. right? They don't want to play when their money isn't guaranteed. But if we can bring them in and bring them in for a bigger tournament, I think Team Canada can make a nice little run. So it's nice that we got a solid, big 20-point plus W over a team in international competition. Hopefully this continues over the summer. So shout out Team Canada. Love to see the Team Canada thrive and achieve success. But the final topic we're talking about is Indiana engaged in Myles Turner trade talks. Now, I don't want to get bogged down into this too much. I don't want to get getting the drama going around Myles Turner. We've made too many videos over the past 2 years about Myles Turner, but this is the report from Woj. This is what I call a Woj sparkle, a Woj, not a bomb, but I'll play the Woj bomb animation. I'll get it going anyways. But apparently the Myles Turner trade talks have picked back up significantly. I've heard a bunch of reporters say this summer that they're actually legit this year's go around. I think with the Kevin Durant stuff looming overhead, the Raptors wouldn't just sacrifice the talks right away until that situation's sorted out. But obviously we've been linked to Myles Turner for the past 3 seasons. This could be the summer it happens. I don't want to dive too much into it, but they did trade Malcolm Brogdon to the Celtics. Like, come on, Indiana. You really trading Brogdon to the Celtics? That sucks, but big acquisition for Boston. But maybe this is a year we get Myles Turner. Let me know in the comment section below. What would you give up in a potential Turner deal? If the Rudy Gobert, rumor or deal that he got, the 5 first-round picks and Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, all those players they had to give up, right? If that's the asking price for a rim-protecting big man, I'll pass. I'll give a nice hard pass and rock out with my precious propaganda all the way through this upcoming season. But if we can get him for something more reasonable, then as always, I'd like to pick up Myles Turner on the cheap. No OG Anunobis, no core players, just some fringe draft capital, similar deal to what the Celtics gave up for Malcolm Brogdon. But that's enough of this. We got a lot of news, and we're going to keep breaking down news as it comes in over the next few days, over this entire free agency period. So let me know what you guys think of everything that's gone down. Subscribe to Raptors Digest if you haven't already. Check out the Instagram, the Twitter, the TikTok, all that cool stuff. Anyways, you guys are the best. I'm signing off. Cheers.